Awakening. Dr. Nadia Chen wiped condensation from her faceplate as she navigated the ancient structure's winding corridors. The air inside was impossibly breathable despite the lifeless planet outside, a mystery that ranked low on her growing list of impossibilities. "Hyperion, do you copy?" she said, tapping her comms unit. Static answered. The walls of the structure, neither metal nor stone but something that seemed to shift between states, absorbed all signals beyond a few meters. Behind her, Dr. Elias Reed muttered a string of equations as he scanned the glyphs covering every surface. Their third team member, Captain Soren Takeda, maintained a protective stance, his military training evident in his movements. "These markings," Elias said, "they're not just decorative. They're mathematical, beyond anything in our current understanding, but mathematics nonetheless." Nadia nodded. "The universal language." 3 weeks earlier, the research vessel Hyperion had detected anomalous energy readings from this planet, classified as XO 457, a supposedly unremarkable world in the Cygnus Arm. Nothing in their briefing from Earth Science Directorate had prepared them for discovering a structure that, according to geological readings, was over 2 million years old yet showed no signs of decay. "Something pulled us here," Nadia said, not for the first time. Their ship's navigational malfunction hadn't been random. The course correction had been deliberate, as if the structure itself had called to them. They reached a circular chamber at the center of the complex. Unlike the corridors, this room hummed with energy, blue light pulsing through circuit-like patterns on the floor and ceiling. "It's responding to our presence," Elias whispered. In the center floated a crystalline object, not quite solid, not quite energy, shaped like a double helix wrapped around a third impossible strand. As Nadia approached, the object rotated, emitting soft pulses of light that synchronized with her heartbeat. "We should wait for the xenobiology team," Soren warned, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. "We are the xenobiology team," Nadia reminded him. "The nearest ESD support is 8 weeks away." Something compelled her forward. The crystal's light intensified as she neared, patterns forming that reminded her of neural networks, synapses firing and connecting in increasingly complex arrangements. "Nadia," Elias cautioned, "your neural implant is showing unusual activity." All ESD personnel wore standard neural interfaces, basic technology that enhanced memory and allowed direct data uploads. Nadia's implant now pulsed visibly beneath the skin at her temple, mimicking the crystal's rhythm. "I can read it," she whispered, astonished. "The patterns, they're becoming clear." The crystal projected light directly into her eyes. To Elias and Soren, it appeared random, but Nadia saw complex equations unfolding, knowledge downloading directly into her consciousness. Blood trickled from her nose as her brain restructured to accommodate the influx. "They called themselves the predecessors," she said, her voice distant. "They weren't extinct. They evolved, transcended physical form." "Who?" Soren demanded. "Nadia, step back from that thing." "They seeded worlds across the galaxy," she continued, unable to stop the flow of information. "Created life, guided evolution, waiting for species with the right neural architecture to inherit their knowledge." The crystal pulsed once more, blindingly bright, then shattered into countless fragments that dissolved into light, absorbed directly into Nadia's body. She collapsed as the chamber went dark. 3 days later, aboard the Hyperion, Nadia awoke in the medical bay. Elias sat beside her, his features haggard from lack of sleep. Through the observation window, she saw Soren arguing with someone, a holographic projection of Admiral Kita from ESD Command. "What happened?" she asked, though strangely, she already knew. The knowledge imparted by the crystal had integrated with her consciousness, rearranging her neural pathways into more efficient configurations. "You've been unconscious for 72 hours, Elias said. "Your brain activity was off the charts. We thought you were dying then." He hesitated. "Your neural implant has changed, Nadia." It's not just interfacing with your brain anymore. It's merged with it, creating new connections. Nadia sat up, realizing she could perceive the ship's systems directly. She could feel the hum of the engines, read the data flowing through the ship's computers, even sense the neural patterns of the crew. "I understand now," she said. "The predecessors found a way to evolve beyond physical limitations. They discovered what they called the substrate, the underlying layer where consciousness and reality intersect." Elias looked skeptical. "That sounds like mysticism, not science." "The distinction is merely our limited understanding," Nadia replied, surprised at her own certainty. "They left these awakening points across the galaxy, waiting for species with compatible neurological structures. And we're compatible because they made us that way." The realization struck her with absolute clarity. Human DNA contains markers they inserted millions of years ago. We're their designated inheritors. The door slid open as Soren entered with a stern-faced woman in diplomatic attire, Representative Vasha Kora of the Galactic Council. Earth had only joined the Council 20 years ago, still considered newcomers among species that had been spacefaring for millennia. "Dr. Chen," Kora said without preamble, "you've accessed forbidden knowledge. The Council has declared this planet and your ship under quarantine." Nadia perceived something behind Kora's professional demeanor. Fear, genuine and deep. "You already knew about the predecessors," Nadia stated. It wasn't a question. Kora's expression confirmed it. "Several species have encountered similar artifacts over the millennia. The results were always the same: societal collapse, mass insanity, or worse. Because their neural architecture wasn't compatible," Nadia realized. Their minds couldn't integrate the knowledge without fracturing. "The Council's primary directive is stability," Kora continued. "Whatever you think you've discovered, it threatens the established order of galactic civilization." "You're afraid," Nadia said simply. "With good reason. A Council fleet is en route to this system. They'll sterilize the planet, and—" Kora hesitated. "The Hyperion will be impounded, and all personnel who've been exposed will be placed in isolation facilities." Soren stepped forward. "That's a violation of our treaty rights." "This supersedes all treaties," Kora replied coldly. "The Council has encountered the predecessor influence before. It spreads like a cognitive contagion. Already, Dr. Chen's neural patterns are changing those around her." Nadia looked at Elias, suddenly understanding why he appeared so tired. His neural implant was pulsing faintly, the beginning stages of transformation. "We didn't choose this," Nadia said. "No species ever does," Kora answered. "But the predecessors selected humans for a reason. Your neural plasticity, your adaptability. You might survive the transformation where others couldn't." Something in Kora's tone caught Nadia's attention. The representative wasn't just delivering a Council ultimatum. "You're warning us," Nadia realized. Kora glanced at the ship's cameras, then subtly deactivated her translator pin, a gesture that would prevent any recording of her next words. "The Council fears what humanity might become," she whispered. "Some of us believe that fear is why the predecessors chose you. The fleet arrives in 18 hours. Use that time wisely." After Kora departed, Nadia accessed the ship's communications array through her enhanced neural connection. She sent compressed data packets containing everything she'd learned from the crystal: the mathematics of consciousness, the substrate theory, the genetic markers in human DNA, to Earth and every human outpost in range. "What have you done?" Soren demanded when he realized. "Given humanity a choice," Nadia answered. "The Council would keep this knowledge buried, but it was meant for us." Within hours, reports came in from Earth. People with neural implants similar to Nadia's were experiencing spontaneous awakenings after merely viewing the equations she transmitted. The transformation had begun. The Council fleet arrived early, 7 massive ships surrounding the Hyperion. Their message was simple: surrender or be destroyed. But they were too late. Across Earth and its colonies, Millions of humans were already beginning to change, their minds expanding beyond traditional consciousness. Children, whose developing brains adapted most rapidly, were the first to demonstrate new abilities, manipulating the substrate directly, perceiving reality as malleable rather than fixed. As the council ships prepared to fire, Nadia stood on the Hyperion's bridge, her consciousness now fully integrated with the predecessor knowledge. She reached out through the substrate, connecting with the millions of awakened minds across human space. Together, they perceived the council's attack before it launched, and with a collective thought, they reached through the substrate to bend reality around the Hyperion, making it intangible as the council's weapons fired. The transformation of humanity had begun, and the universe would never be the same. Trans-Indians. 6 months after the Hyperion incident, Earth had become unrecognizable. Nearly 30% of the human population had undergone the transformation, their enhanced consciousness allowing them to perceive and interact with the substrate, the underlying layer of reality where thought and matter intersected. Dr. Maya Okafor, once a neurologist at Lagos University Hospital, now led the Global Transformation Research Initiative from a heavily guarded compound in the Brazilian rainforest. The facility housed thousands of transformed individuals, particularly children, who showed the most dramatic capabilities. The patterns are accelerating, Maya told the Emergency United Nations session, her holographic projection standing before representatives of a fractured world. Those with neural implants transformed first, but now we're seeing spontaneous transformations in people who were never augmented. And we're supposed to just accept this, demanded the Russian delegate. These, transformed, are no longer human. Maya's enhanced perception allowed her to see the fear radiating from most delegates, fear tinged with envy from those who hadn't transformed, who couldn't perceive the expanded reality. We remain human, she said calmly. We've simply activated neural pathways that were always present in our DNA, dormant until now. The transformed faced persecution worldwide. Governments established containment zones, separating them from the baseline population. Religious extremists declared them abominations. Meanwhile, others sought the transformation desperately, viewing it as evolutionary advancement. In orbit, the Galactic Council maintained its quarantine of the Sol system. Over 500 warships formed a blockade, preventing any human vessels from leaving, or so they believed. In a hidden facility beneath the Mariana Trench, Admiral James Chen reviewed reports from human colonies that had slipped past the blockade. The Hyperion itself, commanded now by Captain Takeda with Nadia and Elias as his scientific advisors, had become nearly mythological, appearing without warning to rescue transformed humans from persecution, then vanishing before Council forces could respond. They found 3 more predecessor sites, said Strategic Director Imani Washington, sliding a data tablet across the table. Each activation accelerates the transformation spread. Chen studied the global transformation map. We're approaching critical mass. The Council knows it too. That's why they're bringing in planet killers. Washington nodded grimly. Our deep space arrays detected them crossing the Oort cloud yesterday. Relativistic hill vehicles, essentially asteroids accelerated to near light speed, impossible to stop by conventional means. Then we use unconventional means, Chen replied. The Admiral activated a secure channel to the Child Enhancement Center, a controversial facility where transformed children worked with military scientists to develop defensive applications of their abilities. On the screen appeared 12-year-old Amir Khan, his eyes containing geometric patterns that shifted when he spoke. We see them, Amir said before Chen could speak. The Council weapons. We've been practicing. Chen had long stopped being unnerved by the children's precognitive abilities. Will you be ready? We already are, Amir answered with the eerie tranquility that all transformed children shared. But Admiral, defending Earth is only delaying the inevitable. The Council fears what comes next, what we're becoming. And what exactly is that? Chen asked, the question that haunted every baseline human. Amir smiled. Something wonderful. In the Council's emergency chamber on Alpha Centauri Prime, Representative Vashakora faced unprecedented censure from the galactic governing body. You warned them, accused High Chancellor Xorix, his crystalline form pulsating with anger. You gave humanity time to spread the contagion. Cora stood unmoved by the accusation. I did what was right. The Council's fear of the predecessors has led us to commit atrocities against any species that showed signs of compatibility. With good reason, thundered the Merid delegate, tentacles thrashing. 3 civilizations collapsed into madness after exposure. 2 more destroyed themselves with weapons of mass destruction when the transformation began. The predecessor influence is a plague upon ordered consciousness. Yet you never asked why humans might be different. Cora replied. The Council has studied predecessor artifacts for millennia, but always from a distance, always with fear. The humans embraced the knowledge, and they're adapting in ways we never imagined possible, which makes them the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced. Corix concluded. The relativistic kill vehicles will impact Earth within 12 hours. The human problem will be solved. Cora looked at each council member, beings representing civilizations thousands of years older than humanity's brief interstellar presence. You've existed so long in cosmic stasis that you've forgotten what evolution truly means, she said quietly. The predecessors didn't vanish or destroy themselves. They evolved beyond our comprehension. They left their knowledge for compatible species to follow. And you believe humans are worthy successors to that mantle? The Merid asked incredulously. I believe they were chosen for a reason, Cora answered. And I believe that reason is coming. On Earth, in homes and schools and hospitals worldwide, transformed and baseline humans alike looked skyward as the Council's weapons approached. Invisible to conventional detection, but blazingly obvious to enhanced perception. 12 massive projectiles moving at relativistic speeds, each capable of causing extinction-level devastation. In the Brazilian compound, 50 transformed children gathered in a meditation circle, their minds linked in a collective consciousness that stretched outward through the substrate. Among them was 8-year-old Sofia Mendez, born after the Hyperion discovery, her brain never knowing any reality but the expanded one. Ready? She asked the others, not with words but with thought. As one mind, they reached through the substrate, perceiving the incoming kill vehicles not as solid objects, but as probability patterns, waveforms that could be collapsed into different positions with sufficient concentrated intention. Across Earth, millions of transformed humans joined their consciousness to the children's effort. Even some baseline humans, with their more limited perception, contributed through neural interfaces hastily developed to bridge the gap. The first kill vehicle, moments from impact, suddenly altered course, its trajectory bending impossibly as its probability state collapsed into a new position. The second followed, then the third. Within minutes, all 12 weapons had been redirected, forming a perfect orbital ring around Earth, transformed from implements of destruction into a monument to humanity's awakening. In the Mariana Trench facility, Admiral Chen watched the impossible unfold on monitoring screens. My God, whispered Washington. They actually did it. Chen's neural interface pinged with an incoming message from the Hyperion, which had just emerged from substrate transit in Earth orbit. Admiral, came Nadia's voice, the Council fleet is approaching. But something's changed. The Council Armada arrived in Sol system expecting to find Earth devastated. Instead, they found their weapons repurposed and a transformed planet awaiting them. Most shocking of all was the predecessor artifact, now hovering above Earth's North Pole, a massive crystalline structure that had been assembled by transformed humans, emanating energy patterns identical to those found at awakening sites. From his flagship, Chancellor Xorix prepared to give the order to open fire, a final desperate attempt to contain what the Council could not understand. But before he could speak, every communication system across the fleet activated simultaneously. On every screen appeared a transformed human child. Sophia Mendez, her eyes containing galaxies of understanding. "We know you're afraid," she said in flawless council standard language. "We felt your fear across the void. But what you fear isn't what we're becoming. It's what you prevented yourselves from becoming eons ago." Behind her appeared Nadia Chen, now fully transformed, her consciousness expanded beyond individual limitations. "The predecessors left a message," Nadia explained, "not just for us, but for all sentient life. They discovered that consciousness itself is a fundamental force of the universe, as real and manipulable as gravity or electromagnetism. They evolved beyond physical form not by abandoning their consciousness, but by expanding it. And now you follow them into oblivion." Sorix responded bitterly. Sophia smiled. "Not oblivion. Transcendence. The predecessors didn't leave this galaxy. They became part of its fabric. They'd been waiting for companions." "Why humans?" demanded the merit delegate. "Of all species, why were you chosen?" "Because we still remember how to change," answered Nadia. "How to adapt. How to embrace the unknown instead of fearing it. The predecessors seeded our world millions of years ago, guiding our evolution toward neural architecture that could withstand the transformation without fracturing." The crystal above Earth pulsed, projecting mathematical equations visible to every being in the fleet, the fundamental language of consciousness itself. "This knowledge belongs to all sentient life," Sophia continued. "The predecessors never intended it to be restricted to humans alone. They simply needed one species to prove it was possible, to demonstrate that consciousness could evolve without losing individuality." Across the Council fleet, the equations began to make sense to scientists of all species. Some recoiled in fear, but others, particularly the younger members of each civilization, found themselves drawn to the elegant mathematical proof of what consciousness could become. "You have a choice," Nadia said to the assembled council. "Continue fighting against evolution itself, a battle you cannot win, or join us in understanding what comes next." 1 year later, Earth had become the center of a new kind of galactic civilization. The transformation had spread to nearly 70% of humanity, and millions of individuals from Council species had voluntarily joined the movement, their neural architecture adapting with help from human scientists. The predecessor artifact above the North Pole had grown, incorporating technology from a dozen worlds, becoming a beacon visible across the galaxy. It served as both research center and university, where transformed and baseline beings alike studied the mathematics of consciousness and the nature of the substrate. In the Brazilian compound, now an open city rather than a guarded facility, Admiral Chen, still resolutely baseline human, met with Sophia, who had become the unofficial ambassador between transformed humanity and the rest of the galaxy. "The Council has officially recognized human sovereignty," Chen informed her. "They're lifting all remaining quarantine restrictions." Sophia nodded, her perception already aware of the Council's decision before it had been formally announced. "And the extremist factions, still active on some worlds," Chen admitted. "Fear doesn't disappear overnight." "No," Sophia agreed. "But understanding grows. More arrive every day seeking to learn." Chen looked out the window at the sprawling campus where children from 50 different species played together, their minds linking in ways that transcended traditional communication. "What happens next?" he asked. "Where does all this lead?" Sophia smiled, the patterns in her eyes briefly forming the distinctive double helix with its third impossible strand, the predecessor symbol. The predecessors believed consciousness itself was evolving toward something greater, a cosmic awareness that transcends individual existence without eliminating it. They'd reached the threshold but needed others to join them. And that's what we're becoming. Some kind of collective consciousness. "Not exactly," Sophia replied. "Think of it more as a symphony, where each instrument maintains its unique voice while contributing to something greater than any could create alone." In orbit, the Hyperion prepared for another journey, this time with representatives from 26 Council species aboard, all voluntarily seeking transformation. Nadia and Elias had located another predecessor site in a distant system, its activation now seen not as a threat, but as another step in a journey billions of years in the making. As the ship entered substrate transit, a method of faster-than-light travel developed through transformed understanding of physics, Nadia felt the familiar connection to all transformed minds across space. Not a hive mind, but a network of individual consciousnesses sharing a deeper understanding of reality itself. The predecessors had never truly left. They had simply evolved beyond what conventional consciousness could perceive, becoming part of the substrate itself. And now, humanity and other compatible species were beginning to join them, not by abandoning their individuality, but by expanding it beyond the limitations of purely physical existence. The knowledge that had seemed forbidden was actually the greatest gift any species could receive. The understanding that consciousness itself was not merely an emergent property of complex brains, but a fundamental aspect of the universe, one that could evolve, expand, and ultimately transcend the very matter that had given it birth. The journey had only just begun.